Welcome, everybody, to Mom Street USA. My name is Jackie, aka Wishes Mama, and joining me for this hub episode is our good friend Stevie, aka Starship Stevie. And today's episode is all about planning for your Disney trip, but it's a little bit different because we are going to be talking about training for Disney. Now, don't let that worry you. We're not here to put you through a workout regimen, but we are here to give you some tips and some insight on things that you can do to prepare your body for your Disney vacation. So that is the plan for today. Stevie, how are you doing today?
I'm here.
Such a mood. We had a little bit of chaos prior to recording, but we're here and we are ready to get this train on the track, hopefully, and give you guys some good advice for your upcoming Disney trip.
We're here. We have no fear. We're going to get your body into gear.
Yes, I love it.
I
So
improvise that.
perfect. It's amazing. So, what do you have for us to start for today, Stevie?
Of course. So there's a lot that goes into planning a Disney trip. I think that if you are familiar with this podcast, you're well aware of that fact. But there's one consistent thing that I think I hear from people that have maybe never been to Disney or don't go often or haven't been in a long time. And that's how much ground you cover on a Disney vacation. So, like, if you're able bodied and in a position where you're not using like a wheelchair or a scooter, like, you're probably going to hit a new personal record for steps and how many steps you take in a day. And so even if you are in like a wheelchair or a scooter, there's still a lot of ground to cover. I did one trip with a family member that used a wheelchair, and it still involved a lot of pushing, either from somebody in your party or self-navigating. And it's still often a much longer stretch of distance than you're used to. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, I think on my last trip, I looked before, for our notes here for this episode, we averaged anywhere from 5.5 miles on our like resort days where we weren't doing a ton of walking, all the way up to like 10.5 miles on the days that we were like in the parks a lot. So my steps were easily over 10,000 a day, even on those resort days. And so I thought this was fun just to put this in perspective a little bit. If you're familiar with the Disney parks and familiar with Epcot, the loop that you take, whether you go Canada or Mexico, around World Showcase in Epcot is approximately a mile. So imagine looping World Showcase anywhere from 5 to 10 times in a day, and that is going to be, on average, what you are likely to walk on your Disney vacation every day, every single day. So the walking adds up quickly, so preparing yourself for that is always a good idea.
And I would do it again without question. I don't care how tired I get. And I mean, if you're like me, you also have chronic pain, and that chronic pain can also get worse on a Disney trip because of that amount of physical activity. But I don't think that it should keep you from going on a Disney trip altogether. I just think that if you take a couple small steps, a couple like change a couple habits, even if it's not about exercise, even if it's just about like pain management and you're mindful of that, it can drastically change, your mood from day to day. And I these are the things that I do to prepare my body and some things that we found on the internet. But before we get into that, I do want to preface this by saying we're talking about like medical and medical adjacent things. We are not doctors. I was an English major. Jackie was a music major. Please
Definitely
follow
not
the advice.
doctors.
Please follow the advice of your doctor first and foremost.
Yes.
We are not medical professionals. These are just things that we have found personally helpful, or other people that we know have found personally helpful. And I wanted to share this in case somebody else was in a position to be helped by this advice. I know that a lot of times doctors provide that advice for management. So if this sounds like it could be something that is helpful for you, that's wonderful. And that is absolutely what we're here to do, to kind of crowdsource this information so you can more pain-free, or maybe reduce your pain and enjoy your Disney trip.
Yes,
So,
we definitely want you to start by talking to your doctor about
yes.
concerns or like suggestions that they have, because everybody is different, right? We are going to give some very generalized advice today. So that's definitely a good base to start with, but you'll even hear Stevie and I mention today, like, you may need to Google a couple things, or you should check with your doctor about that if you have specific options or things that are going to be more beneficial to you depending on your personal needs. So listen to what we have to say for sure, but definitely jot some things down, check with your doctor, get their advice before you try anything for your pain or for your, physical activity levels, all that type of stuff.
The goal is to get you to think about what you might need in this scenario and give you a starting point for how to brainstorm because your body is different. So the hope is that something that we say might maybe be like, oh, hey, this happens to me sometimes with a lot of physical activity. I should prepare. Because the thing that I hear, like I said before, is people are excited about a Disney trip and realize that there's a lot of walking, but don't think about the cause and effect of that until afterwards. And so this is a learn from your mistake, or learn from our mistakes or learn from the things that we've tried. And the best way to start is to think about that before your trip, like you are now if you're listening to this episode.
Good for
And
you. You did it.
and I think the easiest thing that you can do before your trip at any point in time before the trip starts is to go on walks. Even if you just do it on a Saturday or two before you go, if you get your body more accustomed to walking, you're in the habit of it already before you get there. And I want to say that something is better than nothing. It doesn't have to be long and drawn out. You don't need to hit some kind of you can set goals if you wish to, but you don't need to look at average step count and say, I'm going to hit this, these many days. No, no, no. Something is better than nothing. If you go for 10 minutes, 10-minute walks every single day or just a couple days, you're doing more than you did before. And that's going to help your body kind of build up that endurance for the trip itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen a lot of fun TikTok videos or things online where people will use track length or of their favorite Disney ride or wait times of a Disney attraction to determine how long or how far they want to try to walk, just as a fun, motivating way to get yourself up moving. I've seen people that have done it where they put everything into a wheel online and click it so it's randomized. So there's lots of fun ways that you can do that to kind of help make it on theme and motivate yourself. Also having a really good soundtrack. So whatever hypes you up and whatever excites you, whether that be something Disney that you can sing along to, or if it's, different styles of music may give you more energy to keep going further, or making sure you have a playlist for whatever length of time you're going to be walking. So if you want to go for 45 minutes, giving yourself 45 minutes of music to help with that is always a really good idea. So I find that my walks go a lot smoother if I have something good to listen to.
I find that as a former band kid, finding music where I can walk in step with the music
Yeah.
helps a lot. I also have found audiobooks are great or listening to podcasts like this one.
Oh,
You could
hey.
listen to us while you go on a walk.
You're so good.
And there are great videos on YouTube, and I think they've started to add videos on Disney Plus as well that are just walkthroughs of the park. So if you're on a treadmill and you're not outside and you've got your phone, you can put that up and pretend that you're walking at Disney while you're doing your walk on a treadmill. And I
Yeah,
think
and
that's so fun.
there are playlists on Spotify that I have found that are literally treadmill mix, and they'll say slow pace, medium pace, high pace. So if you just do some Googling and look around, I've got some that are 90s pop music that I like to listen to if I'm going a certain pace because I can walk in step with them. I do tend to listen to podcasts more than anything when I'm walking, or live streams on TikTok or YouTube, or so there's so many different options of what you can listen to. So pick what you think will work best for you and have that ready so that way you can help motivate yourself.
Absolutely. Whatever gets you moving, whatever keeps you motivated, that's the best tip, whatever works for you. And
Exactly.
then keep in mind after you do that movement, learn what parts of your body are sore or tender or hurt after you do a lot of walking. And so what I tend to do is that I will literally Google an anatomy chart, like a physical anatomy chart. So if I don't have a name for a specific muscle, then I can know, okay, this part of my shoulder hurts. That's my rotator cuff. And then I will search rotator cuff stretches. I realize that I gestured at myself because I'm on camera right now. But for those of us who are listening, those of you that are listening, I pointed at the top front part of my shoulder. Um, or you can Google and search rotator cuff, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Um, but if it's a whole body thing, I love a YouTube channel called Yoga with Adriene. She has a lot of really great full body routines and isolated body parts routines for varying mobility levels. She's really good at providing alternatives depending on what you are or are not able to do, and is very shame free about modifying. Like, you have to meet your body where you're at. It's not going to be the same every day, and that's okay, and there's nothing wrong with that, and she provides a lot of really great positive reinforcement about it too, and so, like, I just, like, sing her praises all the time. I've been following her for years.
Yeah, well, and I think it can be so intimidating to know where to start. So, like,
Yes.
having a couple suggestions, and Stevie's going to provide a few more for other things as we go as well, can always be helpful because, like, you go on YouTube and you search yoga workout, you're going to find a million videos.
Absolutely.
So, having something where you can start, like, okay, well, let me try these first. And then, like, oh, maybe I don't really like those ones as much. I need to do something more fast paced. Okay, well, then that gives you something to go off of after that.
Absolutely, and it's hard to find, especially if you don't know where your body's at, like, what kind of intensity level that you need, and so, like, knowing that you can go into something that's going to scale that movement for you is really helpful. It's something that I personally find helpful because
Yeah.
my mobility range is gonna vary from day to day with my arthritis pain, for example.
Right, exactly, for sure. All right, what else can we look at doing before our trip?
Absolutely. So if you want to level up, if you are already in a good walking habit, or if you're just like, wow, these walks are great, want to do some more, I would highly recommend doing some strength training. Now, that's probably going to sound like a lot. I feel like I can hear people groaning on the other side of their phone already, but hear me out. I used to be you. But sometimes, not all the time, and I've spoken at length with my personal trainer about or not my physical therapist about this. Sometimes the pain that we experience comes from weak muscles. So, for example, some back pain is caused by weak core muscles, which is so annoying. But I am living proof that if you add more ab muscle work into your workout routine, like I added more ab work into my workout routine and my back pain decreased. And that's stupid. Like, that is so annoying that that worked. Because it worked, that means that I have to keep doing it.
Mhm.
Which just like it's annoying. And sometimes it's like something like brushing your teeth, for example. Like, I don't enjoy doing it, but I know that I need to. And that's
Yeah.
kind of the approach that I take to strength training because when I go on walks, especially when I first started, I would notice like a lot of low back pain. And I'm just like, what is happening here? Like, why is this happening? And so that was when I started to learn that like a lot of that correlates and it helps to find some kind of full body uh system or routine.
So, if you don't know, when Stevie talks about strength training, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going out and like lifting weights. There's a ton of different ways that you can do strength training, and it's really just isolating specific groups of muscles that you're trying to increase the strength of. So, ab workouts and things like that, something as simple as doing, some sit ups or crunches or push ups can be strength training. So, you don't feel like you have to run out to, get these 10-pound weights to start building that muscle. It can be very simple with no equipment at all, and again, that's something you can do at home, easy peasy.
Absolutely. Being able to use your own body weight is a great search term. For example, if you're looking for something, or if you look for equipment free workouts, that's another great place to start. I have channels that I personally really love that have a lot of really great content at varying mobility and ability levels that have varying workouts with or without equipment. Um, that I find really easy to just get snippets if there's a certain muscle group that I want to work, and I can kind of go from there. So I really love Dare to Be Active from LA Toma. Um, I really love Mad Fit. Um, that's I don't. I realize that I should maybe enunciate that like
We'll
mad,
put
like the emotion
Yeah, we'll
and
put all
fit.
of these in the caption or in the description so that way you guys can find them. And if you're watching us on YouTube after the fact, we will link to their YouTube so that way you guys can just click and find them to make it easier for you.
MadFit in particular has a lot of combo like stretching routines and then like dance party kind of things just to kind of get your body moving and with like fun like current music, which I really enjoy. I also really love Abby Pollock. Her channel is also called the Team Plans. She posts workouts on both, but it's a lot of really great, just like isolating strength training movements that you don't need a lot of equipment for. You don't need to be doing too much. It's really about the intensity and acknowledging that, like, if you go faster with a lot of repetitions or if you slow the repetitions down, like, that's also going to challenge your muscles in a different way. And then the last one that I really love on Instagram is the Physio Fix. She's a physical therapist and she posts about like specific experiences that you might have, or if you have pain in a specific place, different things that you can do to help those muscles get stronger.
Yeah, and as we said, we'll make sure all of that is in the description so you guys can find those if you're looking for them after we have recorded this and you want to listen and find where those are all at. We'll put them in the description for you guys.
And I will add, I know that it sounds like a lot, but again, like something is better than nothing. A lot of these channels have like things that you can do in 5, 10 minutes. And like that alone, like, especially like I will do, the PhysioFix has some routines specifically for foot strength to help you like improve your foot endurance, and that's where I have a lot of my chronic pain. And so there's something called like toe yoga where you lift your big toe and then you keep the other 4 toes on the ground and then you swap. And if you do that in alternating motions, that's helping to engage those muscles, and it for me it kind of wakes them up before I do anything. And I find that that's really helpful, and it's something you don't necessarily think about until I was following her. I was like, oh hey, let me try that. And then when I went and saw a physical therapist, like for my own health reasons, I told her that I do this, and she was like, yes, I was going to add that to your plan. And so I'm glad that you're already doing it.
Yeah, and a lot of this stuff, like Stevie said, you don't have to devote 2 hours to doing
Correct.
this, right? You know, if you are someone who sits at your desk job and can do toe yoga while you're sitting at your desk at work, or, you know, there's lots of different ways to just squeeze a couple things in. And again, anything is better than nothing. So whatever you do, even if you only do it once or twice because you run out of time because you're in, you know, packing mode and trying to get ready for your trip, that's better than nothing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the next thing that I want to talk about is kind of related to all of that, and it's what you're wearing, specifically your shoes, while you're doing all of that movement. So, regardless of whether or not you decide to do any movement before your trip, I really need you to look at your shoes and what kind of condition they're in. If they're pretty walked through, you're gonna be doing a lot of walking, and so if you need to buy a new pair, make sure that you can buy a new pair in time to break them in before you go, so that way, I don't know, I always get, like, a little, like, blister right as I'm breaking in new shoes, and then it goes away as my feet are accustomed to walking in them. I usually recommend Hoka's or Nike, are usually the thing, that I gravitate towards. My podiatrist suggested that if you shouldn't be able to fold your shoe, like, in half or, like, bend it. It should be pretty stable, and that's, like, the tip that I use in terms of, like, finding enough foot support that if you can
Stevie's walking
hold
through shoe stores, bending the shoes as she
I literally
decides.
and that's what they told me to do, and it's funny because I've found, really good employees, like, at a Nike outlet store in particular that was just like, "Oh, I know what you're looking for. These are shoes that will help you. These are shoes that won't. Like, this is what
Yeah.
this is designed to do and what's not." So, if you've not done this before and you're just listening, you're not watching, you're gonna put one hand on the heel of your shoe and then the other hand on the tip of your shoe where your toes go and try to bend it together. Most shoes I find that have like that are described as supportive that are maybe on the affordable side will only bend around that toe bit. You're really looking for something that can't bend at all, really, that you can't just like fold into a C or a V shape. But it's hard out there to find affordable footwear. I totally get it.
Yeah.
I'm now of the opinion that it's something that I want to like invest in because, your feet matter a lot and it's terrible being in foot pain, and so, I realized that that's something that I personally wanna budget for to avoid being in, so I get it.
Yeah. And as far as like what I typically wear, my husband and I are both big Brooks fans for like tennis shoes or sneakers, whatever you prefer to call them. The thing that I like about them is that they have a really nice quiz on their website that you can take to figure out which style is best for you based on like how you walk and what level of support you're looking for, which is helpful because when you go to somewhere and you're looking at shoes, it's like, these all have different names. I don't know what any of that means. Like, it's very overwhelming. So make it stress free. And they will give you like 5 or 6 options after you go through and do this kind of, and I think that is super helpful. I have also been pleasantly surprised about how comfortable Crocs are at Disney. And I know a lot of people have various opinions about Crocs, and that's okay. But I'm here to say that I have had very good success with all styles of Croc shoes, whether it's the standard shoes or like on my last 2 trips that I've gone on, I've worn 2 different styles of Croc sandals that have been very, very helpful for me. But I am also someone that doesn't need a ton of arch support. And so for me, that works out really well. Again, no matter what kind of shoe you're taking, you want to make sure that it works for your feet, that you're going to be comfortable in it, and that you have broken them in and trialed them on at least one decent length walk to make sure that they're good for your feet. The other thing that I always suggest is to always bring at least, I would say, depending on the length of your trip, but I would say 3 pairs of shoes minimum to rotate between. One, because of weather, especially in Florida, if they get drenched, chances are good they're not gonna dry by the next morning, or you're gonna have to take a hairdryer to them, and nobody wants to do that when you're trying to get yourself out the door to go to the parks. So, you wanna make sure you have at least 2 good pairs of walking shoes for in the parks, whether that's tennis shoes, Crocs, whatever it may be. And then I would always say some sort of a pair of supportive sandals. So that way, if you end up with blisters, you can give your feet a little bit of a break. Maybe for an evening after you've taken a break in your room for the afternoon, you swap into those for the night. Or, when you know that you're not going to, you're kind of done doing the majority of your walking for the day. Um, but even the most comfortable pair of shoes can start to wear after 2 or 3 days because you're walking so much consistently. So I live by the rule of bringing that many pairs of shoes and not wearing the same pair 2 days in a row. So I am the person that likes to plan my outfits out all the way down to the shoes. So I will rotate through my outfits to make sure that I'm not planning to wear the same pair of shoes 2 park days in a row.
Same. I will literally pick out, like, if I know, okay, I'll be on the People Mover shirt at Magic Kingdom, and we're going to Magic Kingdom on this day. It's like, okay, what shoes do I want to wear with that outfit? Okay, now I know that the days before and after, I have to wear different shoes. So what
Yes.
outfits match with those shoes? So I'm absolutely with you. I do really love my Hoka's sandals. I was really surprised. I'd not done a Disney trip with them, and I had really bad blisters that were just like rubbing on my toes in the same spot after all of the walking. And I was just like, I can't put another pair of like shoes on. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna risk it because I feel like if I am in pain in sandals, it will be less than the pain that I'm experiencing right now with the blisters. And I tried it and I was like, my feet feel better in these than they did in the sneakers,
Well,
which is wild.
that happened to me my first trip that I tried to wear Crocs in the park. I had worn different kinds of tennis shoes, and I was just like it was like day 3 or 4, and I was just like, "My feet hurt." Like, I woke up and I was like, "My feet hurt so bad from these shoes," and I was like, "Well, these are my other pair of shoes. Let me try those," and I wore them in the park, and it got to be about noon or 1, and I distinctly remember being in Magic Kingdom and looking at my husband and going, my feet don't hurt, and I'm irritated that they don't hurt because 2 I've gone 2 days with my feet hurting, and now my Crocs are the reason that they don't hurt, and so after that, I was like, "Well, this is the life I live now."
Yeah, yeah. It's good to know what does and doesn't contribute to your pain. I will say, like, I'm somebody who needs a lot of arch support, and it blows my mind. I don't Crocs, in terms of not liking them, I do not care about the aesthetic. It is whatever's comfortable for you, like, is what matters. What I don't understand, just as someone who needs that support, is like how it's comfortable for anybody, just because I need so much support to
Right.
function. So like I just assume that like somebody would probably need marginal. So like, it's just like, it blows my mind. I can't
Yeah.
wrap my brain around it. I did used to wear Crocs before they like made a resurgence in the culture, maybe around like 15 years ago. And I got laughed at then, but I also just like was wearing them like in weather appropriate times
Right.
and they weren't really comfortable. It was just, I have big feet and they were the only things I could find in my price range at the time.
Right.
And it
Yeah.
was just like, this is what I'm getting.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I don't know that I want to get these ever.
Right. Right. Well, and that was always my like, I don't really love the way they look. Like, I don't really know. And I just kind of like, it was one of those things where it just ended up that way. And now I'm like, well, I'm now a Croc person. So, and honestly, part of the selling point not only is the comfortability, but having some pair of shoes that can withstand weather
Yeah.
in Florida. If you know that it's going to rain all day, one of your park days, and you're one of those people that's like, yep, throw on a poncho, let's go.
Yeah.
You still need to have shoes because walking around in wet shoes all day is not ideal. So you've got to have some kind of shoes that will help you in the weather situation, even if it's not an all day fix, even if it's just like, okay, I know it's going to rain this morning. And then in my bag, I threw my other pair of shoes or I threw them in a locker at the front of the park or whatever you can do for whatever your needs are. But having something that is weather adjustable, and that's Crocs are that way.
Or Tiana's adjustable, Tiana's functional. I say that because on our last trip, I rode front row on Tiana's. Shout out to Crosby. I love the cast member that I met when I went on the ride. I rode in the front row and I did not realize that when you come down that big splash, you like you're swimming in your seat.
Yep.
Like it's not that like the first splash is the bad thing, it's the back splash after you splash. So
Mhm.
you go down the ride and it comes up and you get a little wet and then all of the water that you splashed hits the bumpers on the side of the wall and it all comes in and I'm not exaggerating when I say that I was just sitting in water. Now, it filters back out because that's the way that the ride is structured, but that's how you start. And I was glad it was like the end of the night and we were like literally going home after that to back to the hotel for me to change. But I did stand and wait for 45 minutes in the bus, sopping wet.
Yeah.
Um,
They did
so
not need to put those rocks where they put them, but they did, and every hill that you go down on that ride, you get splashback. The worst is the one where you go into spoiler free, when you go down the second small hill into that scene, there is a rock literally directly in front of where your log goes down, and if you are in the front row, it all comes back at you. Do not appreciate. 0 out of 10. Do not recommend.
yeah, yep, yep.
And Vinny in our chat here live is talking about Birkenstocks for like a
Mm.
plastic pair of Birkenstocks for rain. So that's another great option if you're someone familiar with those shoes. There's tons of different options. These are the ones that we have found, but do what you will and what works for your feet. And again, you gotta make sure you try them before your trip.
Absolutely. I find that Reddit threads are very helpful when trying to crowdsource information about shoes, especially when you've got a specific need that you're
Yeah.
trying to meet. There's a Reddit thread for just about anything. But if we're looking at modifying what you already have, I would highly recommend thinking about whether or not your feet would be helped by inserts. There are all kinds of things that you can find, especially cushion inserts that are really widely available. I know that my husband really loves Dr. Scholl's. I need inserts for arch support, and I put that in on top of the existing like insert that comes with the shoe. And the brand that I use is Skyfoot, and it basically just like provides that additional support. It's a very rigid insert, so it's not cushioning at all. So I prefer to have shoes that have a lot of that cushioning already, and so then when I add the arch support, it feels like I'm actually getting both. But if you decide to go that route, whether cushioning or whatever other needs that you find, walk in them before you go. Walking prior to your trip is negotiable. I'm not telling you have to do that. But if you buy something to put in your shoe, I need you to test them out before you go because it is not something that you want to learn causes you more pain while you're on the trip.
Yeah, anything that you are buying for your feet to go on your feet in any way, shape, or form needs to be tested before you go. Again, even if you just take just one walk to make sure that they don't rub and that they're comfortable, you got to give yourself some time to make sure that they're going to work for you.
Run your errands in them because maybe you find out after 10 minutes that they're not an option and then you're just going home anyways. Like think about different opportunities that you have to test. If you're running on lots of errands, I don't know. I have errand days and then your feet hurt at the end of that sometimes too. And that's a great way to test to see whether or not your pain is the same amount.
Well, and chances are good you probably have some sort of list of things that you need to get for your trip anyway. So that is the perfect chance to put those shoes on, commit to wearing them all day, right? Even
Yes.
if you get home, unless they're starting to hurt, then you already have learned whether or not they're going to work. But if they're still working by the time you get home, continue to wear them through like dinner time to make sure that you give yourself a solid day wearing those shoes around.
Absolutely. And speaking of things that you might want to add on that list of things that you're errands that you're running, I find that compression gear is really helpful for me. I wear compression socks and knee sleeves as needed, and I have noticed a huge difference in my pain levels on airplanes in particular when I wear compression socks. I will usually bring them in my personal item or my carry-on and then like put them on like in the bathroom before we actually board the plane, and I was like I didn't really think that it was, like, a thing that was gonna work, like, I thought that this was just, like, a thing that, like, I know somebody was trying to make money off of me or whatever, but my physical therapist was just like, compression gear is going to help you based on the hypermobility and the other stuff that you have going on. And I was just like, okay, 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 I will try. And I did. And now I'm just like, this is how it has to be. So there are lots of brands out there. The ones that I've been trying have been Copper Fit. They're the first ones that I've tried, so I don't really have a comparison as to whether or not they're like good, better, best, etc. However, they did work for me at minimum and they did improve my symptoms. So I think that in particular is one of those things that like something is better than nothing, like some kind of compression. If you're experiencing something that would be helped by that, something is better than nothing.
Yeah, and I second the compression socks especially. If you're not someone that necessarily needs to wear them around frequently, just having them to put on like after you get out of the shower at the end of your park day when you are like prepping your bag for the next day or like getting your stuff situated just to give you a little bit of support can be really, really helpful. And this is one of those cases where you may just want to run it by your doctor. Hey, what do you suggest? I want to, keep ahead of my ankle pain, my knee pain, my foot pain, whatever it is. See what they say, run it by your doctor to check in, and they're going to be able to suggest and help guide you to like what areas to focus on with that compression.
Absolutely. And another thing to run by your doctor, but I feel obligated to mention is kines I call it KT tape, but I think the K stands for I can't say that word.
Kinesthetic.
Kinesiology? Yes, kinesthetic tape.
Yeah.
KT tape is always, like, what I call it because that's, like, way less of a
I
mouthful.
feel like that's what it's pretty well known by. So like if you do a Google search for KT tape, you're going to find it.
Yes, it'll come up. It's not for everyone, but if it is for you in particular, don't forget to pack it. I am so glad that I didn't. There's lots of tape brands out there. My physical therapist had recommended to me the brand OK Tape, and I really like it. It comes in lots of fun colors, and I have like child-friendly scissors that I usually like put it in a baggie and keep it together in my checked bag, just because scissors. I did forget on our trip to Tokyo to bring scissors, and so I literally had nail clippers, and I literally just, like, had to just snip,
Got to do
snip,
what you
snip.
got to do.
It did not work. I mean, it functioned, but it was not, like, a good solution. So, it's just something to keep in mind. It definitely helps with knee pain to just, like, remind my knee how it's supposed to move, especially if in Florida in particular, with the air pressure and the humidity, it can really affect my mobility, and my body sometimes forgets how it's supposed to move. So the KT tape is like a physical reminder to remind my joints, hey, this is the right way to do it. Let's do it this way.
Right. And Anna in our live chat is also mentioning they do make some pre-cut tape options as well, depending on what you need it for. The big thing with this KT tape is that you need to know how to do it correctly for it to actually be effective. So that's where it's something you've got to run by a physical therapist, a trainer, a doctor, someone that can give you guidance on how to do it for you. because I feel like it's one of those things where you can put it on, but if you don't get it exactly placed right, it's not gonna do anything, and it's not I won't say it's ridiculously expensive, but it's not cheap when you go to buy some of this stuff because it's meant to be a medical device to an extent, right, to help with your muscles and joints and different things, so just do your research, talk to your doctor before you use that type of, assistance for your body because there are ways to do it that it will actually be effective and helpful.
I will add there are YouTube videos for how to tape. However, there are lots of different ways to tape a single body part, and they all do different things. So you might know how from the video how to do it, but which one specifically might help your body is what's going to change. So lots of things to keep in mind. But I didn't realize that it was something that I should ask about because I thought that was something that just like professional athletes did. And so it wasn't until my physical therapist was just like, "Hey, have you ever done this before?" And I was like, "No, how would I what is this?" Like,
Why would I have ever done this before?
yes,
This is not a
yes,
thing I should do.
absolutely, and so this is just something that you could, like, add to your notes of things to maybe ask a doctor if it sounds like something that may be helpful for you.
Yeah, for sure. Something else to consider is whether or not you are going to be needing any sort of ice or heat for your specific needs. There are ice machines that you can get ice from, but having a baggie of some sort maybe to put that in if that's something you're going to need, just kind of planning some of those extras ahead. And also you can also use some sort of like a lotion, like an icy hot or, any of those types of lotion that maybe can give you some muscle relief if that's something that you're used to. Again, trial this beforehand, make sure you know where you're going to be using it, give it a try because some people don't enjoy the sensation of those types of materials and lotions and things like that. So, uh, taking a look at that and considering that before your trip can be helpful too.
I will say if you forget to bring a bag or, like, something to put the ice in, I would recommend talking to the merchandise location in your hotel because they could probably give you a plastic bag that you could put some of that ice in.
Yeah.
I feel relatively confident that they will happily hand that over to you, so if
Or
you
like
do happen to forget, that's an option.
Yeah, or like mouse keeping if you need, because they do, the ice buckets do have little liners in
Mhm.
them, so they could give
Yeah.
you some extra ones of those. It's easier if it's like a Ziploc because you can manipulate it a little bit easier depending on what your needs are for it. Whereas like you're gonna have a giant ice bag and you may not need that much ice to begin with. So it's a good idea. We always suggest grabbing a couple Ziplocs and having them with you anyway, but this is another use for them if you're someone that's going to need ice. Like I can very distinctly remember being glad that we had Ziplocs on the trip that I went when I was pregnant because I needed to ice my feet because they were so swollen after being in the parks in the heat and I needed to elevate and I needed to ice. So I was glad that I had Ziplocs to be able to manipulate and get on the areas that I needed for that purpose. So lots of different uses for Ziplocs. I highly recommend grabbing a handful and putting them in your bag.
Absolutely, and conversely, if you know that heat helps your muscles relax, if you use a heating pad at home, consider packing it and taking it with you. I know that's not something that, like, everybody thinks about in terms of vacation packing lists, but if it's something that you're already using, like, on high pain days, definitely take it with you, just in case. If you don't need it, you don't need it, but at least you have it with you if that's something that, would be helpful. I also just realized if, obviously, baths can be great too, and so if your hotel has a bath, the tip that my husband and I love doing is going to Basin in Disney Springs on one of the first days of our trip and getting some, like, bath bombs, and then when we are relaxing later and trying to, like, get our muscles to settle down, then the bath smells nice, and then it just feels like a special vacation thing. We kind of, like, turn our hotel room into our own spa, and it's far cheaper than going to an actual spa.
That's so true. Unfortunately, you're gonna have to make sure your room has a tub because a lot of the rooms anymore do not have tubs. So you got to double check and make sure The majority of like the value resorts don't have bathtubs unless you're in a family suite situation. So just being aware of like double check your room layout if you're planning on doing baths. If nothing else, you can always run the water. I will do like hot or cold water just on my feet, even if I don't have a tub, and just kind of stand with just the lower faucet running in the shower too. I've done that before. If I, didn't want to go and get ice, but I wanted, something cool on my feet, turn the faucet cold and stick my feet underneath it too. So lots of different ways that you can make that happen. Something else to consider, purchasing beforehand, which is kind of our little category we're in right now. And that is something if you're concerned about friction or chafing or blisters, kind of all of that rolled into one, thinking about what might be a good thing for you to have for that, whether it's moleskin, whether it's specific band-aids for heels and blisters. For friction and chafing, I've talked to you guys before about using Mega Babe is the brand of the chafing stick that I've used before, and it is amazing. It was life-changing. I know it's a little taboo to talk about chafing, but it's a part of especially theme park visits, right? So they have little travel size ones that you can bring. They have bigger size ones, and it just looks like a deodorant basically that you can put on anywhere that you're concerned about friction. And that stuff works miracles. So having something, if you're not sure, if you're concerned that maybe, I had even longer biker shorts that I was wearing and I still would use it on parts of my body. I was like, better safe than sorry when it comes to all of that. And some of the like band-aids and things like that you can find at like first aid at Disney and things like that. But some of the more specific specialized stuff like a anti-friction stick or moleskin, you definitely want to kind of plan accordingly for that.
I will say that if you listen to our first Tokyo episode, you'll know that I'm all about talking about the taboo just because I think the more information is better for everybody. I went into a long rant about bidets and how great they are in Japanese culture.
It was wonderful.
It was great. I agree. The chafing sticks are such a game changer. I will say that they have a tendency to wear off if you sweat a lot. Like you
Yes.
will probably sweat them off. However, if you bring them with you, they will probably melt in your bag.
Yeah.
So if you're going to bring it with you on your park days, make sure to bring a zip bag to put it in. We usually take midday breaks and I could again, and that was usually enough to get me through, except on the day that it rained. And that kind of like affected everything, but something to keep in mind that they are not temperature safe in their container. If you pop them in the freezer or back in the fridge, they will re-solidify, but if you don't want to get other things in your bag messy, that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, and I did okay with my Mega Babe, but it was also not all the way full, which I think was helpful so that it didn't like leak out into the cap kind of situation. But I have, yeah, seen that hack of sticking it back in the fridge or sticking it in the fridge overnight and then pulling it out and putting it in your bag. That way you've got a little bit of time before it gets to that melty situation. I do have some people talking also in my chat about Disney rash, which is, we're not going to get into the depths of all the different ailments that you can get on your Disney trip, but there is something that is widely known as Disney rash. And I don't know, Stevie, if you've heard about this, but it's basically it almost looks like your legs and ankles break out in like a hive type situation. And it's just very frequent. There's an official term for it, and I forget what it's actually called. But it's something that can be treated with like, you want to put cool on it, compression helps on it, those types of things. So if you're someone who is prone to skin sensitivity, it is a thing that can happen, and it's not Disney specific. It's not like you actually catch it at Disney. It's just something that happens because of the increase in activity that you
It
find whenever you're at Disney.
It's exercise induced and it can be aggravated by being in warm temperatures,
Yes.
which I think is why it gets so associated with people that are with Disney because you're
Mhm.
doing a lot more exercise than you're maybe accustomed to in a different temperature and therefore your body reacts accordingly. And
Yeah.
based on the Googling that I did very quickly, it sounds like if you're prone to inflammation, you may be more likely to get that.
Right.
And I think that if you are wearing something like leggings that are really compressing your whole leg, that might change things too because it's affecting the way that your circulation
Right.
functions. I find that's the case for me. Like they tell you to wear like loose clothing so that way like the blood that pools in your feet has a chance to like recirculate through the rest of your body. But like I like my compression gear because I don't want to chafe. And so it's
Yeah.
kind of a double-edged sword.
Right.
So something to think about.
Yeah, and something like a hydrocortisone cream can likely help with that type of a rash. Always a good idea to go to first aid. If you start to see something pop up and you're like, "Oh, that might be what I heard Mom Street USA talking about," then you head to first aid and have them just double check and make sure that's not something else, right? Again, we are not medical experts by any means. We have no medical background. Check with the doctors and the people who do. So, but that is definitely something that you may find, and you might just want to grab some hydrocortisone cream if you're concerned about it and just have it in your stuff with you.
I didn't even know that was a thing, and I, like, lived in Florida and worked at the
Yeah.
parks. I'm
Yeah.
fascinated.
Well,
That's
you probably were just more acclimated because you were so used to being on your feet all the time and your body was living down there. So I feel like it probably happens more often when, again, people are not used to the humidity and the heat on top of the increase in
mm,
activity. I think, and I've never had issues with it, but I don't have super sensitive skin and I'm not really prone to getting those types of like rashes and things like that. So that
I
is,
just never heard it mentioned
yeah,
by anybody that was visiting, which
yeah,
is interesting to me personally. Of
yeah.
course, I was dealing with a bunch of other types of foot pain, like plantar fasciitis at the time, so, like, my brain was in a different place.
Right, and Anna in the live chat is mentioning that first aid does have little, like, hydrocortisone cream packets along with anything else, obviously, that you need, so that is something that you can definitely find in the parks. And yeah, Sarah's mentioning it does get posted a lot on, like, you see, Facebook Disney Parks pages and things where it's like, "Here's a picture of this on my leg. What do you think it" one of those situations, because that's what Facebook groups are good for, right? Is diagnosing other people's ailments.
This is why I'm not on Facebook.
But yes, it is definitely a thing, so just mentally know that it's a thing, so that way when you see it, you don't panic. Go to first aid, confirm that that's what it is, and then be ready with whatever you need.
Absolutely. I mentioned a minute ago that I was diagnosed with plantar fasciitis, and I wanted to mention a tip specific to that. Um, which is to say a lacrosse ball, and I will explain why a lacrosse ball might be helpful to have in your suitcase before you go. For the record, I did not play lacrosse ever. This was something that my podiatrist recommended to me in terms of managing foot pain, and especially foot pain that goes like that is in your heel or runs through the arch of your foot. But the suggestion was to find something that I could roll under my foot to stretch out and massage those muscles. They actually initially recommended a frozen water bottle, which is great, but like when you're on a vacation, the room fridge is probably not gonna get cold enough for that to be helpful, and I also didn't totally love the sensation of, like, having something wet on my foot because they were recommending I do it, like, in the middle of the workday and, like, leave it in the work freezer, and I'm just like, "So you're telling me I have to take my sock off in the break room and put, like" "No, I'm not doing this." And so what I ended up doing, you can use a tennis ball as well, but I found that lacrosse balls are just a little sturdier. And I found a lacrosse ball at Dick's Sporting Goods for $4, very cheap. I've had it for maybe like, I don't know, 10 years now or something, and it's great, and I use it to work out the knots in my back too, but it basically is like it's self-massage essentially. You're applying specific pressure to those muscles to help them kind of loosen up. And I will use this in the morning, on trip days to kind of wake up my foot muscles. I mentioned toe yoga before as another way to wake up my toe muscles.
I just
Um,
love that term, toe yoga.
yes. And then I will do it at the end of the day to kind of loosen everything up. And because you don't really realize how stiff your feet can get when they're like confined in a shoe all day and they're just walking a lot and obviously moving in that way, but they're doing the same repetitive motion. And I find that I wake up feeling better with my feet if I kind of work those muscles out before I go to bed.
Yeah, for sure. So while we're talking about feet, we're going to continue this conversation. We mentioned that Facebook groups may not be great. However, this next thing I actually found on a Disney Facebook group initially, and then did some more research. And this is something that I've seen a lot of people recommend for your end of the day feet if you get the really sore, achy feet. And that is something that is literally called Dr. Scholl's Tired Achy Feet. That is literally the name of this product. And it is like a foot mask, and it looks like you're wrapping your foot in tin foil. It makes your foot turn into a baked potato, but it has cooling and medicinal qualities on the inside of it. So that way you can wrap your feet in it to help with, your tired and sore Disney feet. So that is something worth maybe some looking at to see if that's something you want to do. And our friend Anna in chat is saying, yes, I did that. It was a very weird feeling, but it helped. So having something maybe to think about giving yourself, we talked about, making a little spa in your, so maybe after you use your bath or shower bomb, get some of these on and lay and put your feet up for a little while and watch a cartoon or two on your TV, and then, get yourself ready for bed after that.
There's something similar that I learned about when I was in Tokyo, and they do sell them, online, that you can get them in the US. It's I like them because you can use them on more than just your feet. They're kind of marketed as being for your feet, but when I was in Tokyo, a friend of mine had texted me. She was staying at a different hotel and told me that her hotel gave them these muscle cooling strips, and she's like, "You have to get them." And she just sent me a photo. She's like, "You have to find this somewhere, and you have to get it." And I was just like, "Okay, gonna do it." And they were very easy to find. They were at like most like regular like drugstores and stuff. And every time that I bought one, I found myself in conversation with a stranger who was also obsessed with them and learned about them on their trip.
Amazing.
So they're basically like menthol sticky strips that help with inflammation. They've got like essential oils essentially that like help with inflammation, and then the menthol to get that cooling effect, and that cooling effect is what can help with that inflammation. They're called Kyosoku Jikan. They're lion companies. That's what they're called. That's the brand that I used. If you search Japanese pink foot patches, they will come up. I
I love
I
that.
because everybody in the US is just like fascinated by them every time they go, and then you hear about them and you're just like, is this a thing? Should I try it? And I use them on the bottom of my feet, but I also use them on my calves, and I found that it was great to just kind of like catch up on the day, go through my photos and have them there. They a lot of times people will wear them like at night, like while they're sleeping. For sensory reasons, that's just like not a good time for me because like they might come off while you sleep if you like move around a lot in your sleep. And I just didn't want to deal with that. And so like that would just be the thing that I did as soon as we got back in the room. And then I would shower or whatever and kind of clean off, and then rub my muscles out with the lacrosse ball and things. And that was my whole routine. But I would highly recommend, if you're worried about swelling or inflammation, they're excellent.
Love that. Something else to consider, again, purchase before you go for use during your trip. Some sort of an electrolyte replenishment. So we haven't really talked much about hydrating yet, but we'll talk a little bit about it as we talk about like during your trip, things that you can do too. But having liquid IV or an equivalent electrolyte replenishment plan is a game changer, especially if you are going during the Florida heat. And I always recommend take it and use it before you need it. If you're waiting until you need it to use it, you've waited too long. Because
Absolutely.
you wanna be on top of that, again, especially we are in the heat of summer right now as we are recording this in July, so you wanna make sure you have a plan for that. This is something relatively new for me personally, but on my last 2 trips, I would start my day with putting liquid IV in my first water bottle of the day, again, before I needed it, and it helped me feel so much better throughout the day, and I noticed a difference between the morning there was one morning that I forgot, and I didn't put it in there, and by about 11, 12 o'clock, I was like, "Man, I really don't feel 100%." And I realized it was because I had forgotten to do the liquid IV that morning. So doing that and having a plan for that is so important because you wanna stay on top of that. Again, if you're waiting until you start to feel yucky to use it, you've waited too long, and that can get very dangerous very fast.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people think about hydration when it comes to just like feeling thirsty and just like knowing that you need water, but water helps your muscles work properly and helps your joints move smoothly. It helps reduce inflammation. Like there are so many benefits to drinking water. And I think electrolytes help your body retain the water. Like when you drink water, it's just gonna like leave your system. And so the electrolytes, that salt helps your body hold on to it for a little longer so it stays in your body to help it do its job. And I find that that is a benefit all in its own. But like when you think about trying to get yourself to drink water, especially if you're not in the habit and you're going to be in a position where your body needs water even more, having an electrolyte supplement like that, having a flavor to me helps incentivize me to drink water.
Yes.
And so that's the other aspect to just like not just be drinking water, but finding some way to make sure that you're going to. And so that's my new thing that I've added to all of my packing lists is making sure that I'm bringing liquid IV with me because I think about it like, oh, when I'm going to the airport, like, yeah, I'm going to put liquid IV in my water bottle because I need to stay hydrated. And I'm just like, you should pack it with you too.
Yeah, and it honestly, it helps with my kids. Now, again, you wanna make sure your kids are old enough to have something like this added to their water bottles, but my kids at 6 and 8 was perfect. We didn't do a full packet with them. A lot of those do have sugar added, so you need to take a look depending on what your needs are. They have some sugar-free options, there's some that don't, but we would just split one between my kids in the morning. That way they just got half of the packet in their 24-ounce Owala that was full of water, and we would do the same for them. We would start them off with a little bit of extra liquid IV, and then usually for them, we would get them either like, a Powerade or Gatorade or something for, like, dinner time, and if we couldn't, then we would have a liquid IV packet with us and we would give them more of that. So it just, again, it's really helpful. That flavor is huge because it just felt like juice then to my kids. And they were like, cool, we get juice in our water bottles. So there's lots of options. And if you're not someone that can do the powdery drink, totally get that. That was me for the longest time. It wasn't until recently. And even then, when I do a 24-ounce water bottle, I only use half because I don't like overly flavored things in my water. I'm just, and I don't like the texture. If it's got any texture, I'm out. I can't do it. There are other natural ways that you can get electrolytes too. So if the powder liquid IV thing is like a total no go, there's lots of other options that you can do. So just look into some sort of an electrolyte replenishment for your trip.
Absolutely. We're now gonna move into things that you should keep in mind during your trip. Thus far, we've talked about all the things that you should do before you go. But now that you're there, now that you're all excited and happy to be there, if you do start to feel in pain, or if you know that you might preemptively, think back to the walks that you took, if you took them, and I want you to use whatever stretching and flexibility that you did at the beginning and at the end of the day. I also love stretching while waiting in lines, especially if there's like a curb or something that I can like stretch my calves out on and like put like my toes on something and then like let my heel hang down so I'm getting that stretch. That personally like helps me manage my pain and it also wakes me up like if I'm starting to like feel kind of tired in the Florida heat, stretching just like, oh, right, I'm awake, I'm alive, I'm excited to be here, all kinds of stretches I find really helpful to kind of help manage that and be mindful of your body, and it's a way to check in with your body too and see, "How am I feeling? Do I need to take painkillers?" And kinda go from there.
Yeah, that can be really helpful. And especially if you've got maybe younger, older kids that think that they don't need to do those types of things, helping them and setting the example for your children of like, cool, we're gonna stretch our feet out and we're gonna, roll our ankles around and our wrists around and kind of make it fun so that way you're all doing it together, but it's just testing out because a lot of kids even in elementary school they don't necessarily understand muscle pain or joint pain and you may run into that in the Disney parks. My oldest is just starting to do like competitive gymnastics practices and workouts, and he's like, "Oh, this muscle feel, my shoulder hurts." I'm like, "Okay, well, is it your muscle or is it your bone or is it," and trying to get them to understand that too can be a little bit of a process. So kind of showing them the stretches that they can maybe do to help too, whether it's teenagers that aren't going to want to do it but really need to do it, or younger kids that don't know how to do it. You got to be that person for them.
Especially at the end of the day, if they're tired and maybe kind of cranky and whiny, like check in with them because like they may not realize that that's what they're experiencing because they don't have a name for it. I
Mhm.
do want to go over some muscle groups that I find are beneficial to stretch. So like if you're not in a routine of doing that, of like checking in with your body, there are lots of different stretching routines that you could just like pull up in your hotel room if you find that this is something that you need, like the channels that I mentioned earlier. But they're the 4 main, like, muscles that I will stretch that I find are really aggravated by a lot of walking, and I think it's common for a lot of people, are calf stretches, like I just mentioned, where you can Google a standing calf stretch, but there are 2 ways to kinda do it. Like I mentioned, like, putting your toes on the top of a curb and letting your heel hang down, or, like, doing this on, like, the bottom step of a set of stairs, and that way you've got a railing to hold on to if you have balance issues, or you can do a lunge and push up against a wall, and then that back leg in the lunge is the one that should feel the calf stretch. The second one being quad stretches, specifically where you stand on one leg and hold your foot behind your butt. If you have balance issues, you can definitely do this in your hotel room, like laying down on one of your sides and then roll over and do the other side. I find this one particularly helpful at midday breaks. So like if we come back and we like take a nap or whatever, that's the main thing. I'm like, okay, I gotta check in. Same thing with a forward bend for your hamstrings. So either standing or sitting and trying to touch your toes. I like doing this one leg at a time from a standing position because I'm able to isolate those muscles a little better. And that's something that I end up doing like when I'm waiting in lines again. Like if there's something for me to put my foot on, like you can bet that I'm stretching my hamstrings because I
Yep.
find that it's connected to my back pain too. Jackie can vouch that I've been doing this for like 10 years
Yep.
or so. And it's also just like a fidgety thing in a way to entertain myself while I'm waiting in line. But I find that when I am doing some kind of forward bend, I'm noticing that my back is also tight.
Mhm.
And so that helps kind of wake up those muscles and help me determine whether or not I need to do more stretches.
Yeah.
And then the last one,
Quick reminder
yes,
before you go on to that. Your quad is the top part of your leg on top. Your hamstring is the top part of your leg on the underside. So depending on, again, Google your anatomy and make sure you know which muscles you're trying to stretch with which stretches, but just a quick reminder.
yes. If another way to put it, if you are looking at your knee, the quad is what is on the front of the knee and connected to the front of the knee, and the hamstring is behind, like under your butt, and connects like through the back of your knee.
Perfect.
And the last one, now that I've just mentioned your butt, um, is the piriformis stretch. I used its government name, but it's basically like a glute stretch. It's a specific muscle. You might also know this as a figure 4 stretch, where you're basically making the number 4 with your legs. You can do it while you're laying down and kind of like curl your body up in a ball, or you can do it while you're sitting in a chair. I find that I do it, like, when we're waiting for a show to start in a theater. And I'm gonna describe the stretch to you, but it's easy enough to do while you're in a theater and hanging out. You're basically just gonna put one ankle on top of your other bent knee and kind of lean forward, and that makes that shape of a 4, and if you had the leg that your ankle is resting on stretched out, then you're getting that full 4 shape. If you Google a figure 4 stretch, it's absolutely gonna come up. That's a muscle that I don't realize is tight until I go to stretch it. I'm just like, "Oh, okay. Hello there." And I find that especially that helps with any kind of like back tightness as well because it's all connected. The next tip that I would suggest is probably the most self-explanatory one, which is to say take painkillers as you needed. My guess is that you probably have an idea of what painkillers do or don't work for you. And I guess this should have maybe been included in the prep part of your trip. But there are some topical alternatives for some pain. I know that we mentioned the uh, the icy hot like cream, but there are topical alternatives like Voltaren. This is something that other lovely hub co-host Duck suggested for arthritis pain. I also have arthritis, and I want to try it the next time that I have a flare up that it's targeted, because that's the thing with painkillers. You can't really control where it's going to go. Your brain kind of decides, like, this is where the painkiller stuff is going to be affected. Listen, you're not here for the explanation of the science behind painkillers. It's a trust the process kind of thing.
Yep.
But that's what's appealing to me about having a topical alternative, is that it's like a targeted approach to wherever you're experiencing pain. At least that's my assumption based on what I know of science. 'Cause
Science.
I was an English major.
Well, and if you are someone that is going to plan to take painkillers, do just a quick little bit of research to figure out which ones are better for you, because some are better for like joint pain and some are better for inflammation and some are better for muscle pain. So like do just a quick research because there's a couple different kinds out there. Again, I'm not going into that because that is not my lane and I'm gonna stay in my lane. But you should make that your lane if you're going to be taking them, to make sure that you know what you're putting in your body and whether or not it's going to help. And again, that may be a conversation with your doctor that would be a good idea.
Yes, especially if you've got other underlying issues. In a conversation with my cardiologist, he was recommending Tylenol of the alternatives because it's easier on your heart. And so if you've got other things going on, that means that's going to change how you manage, the pain levels in the other parts of your body.
Yes, for sure. So continuing our conversation about what to do during your trip is something we've already talked about, which is to hydrate. So again, we're going to talk about you need to hydrate, and you need to hydrate with something that's more than just water. So some form of electrolytes, you've really got to make sure. Now, I will say if it's cooler or if you're like Disneyland has much milder temperatures, you may not need it as frequently. I do still suggest having it though, because it's always going to help your body in those situations where you need to be drinking extra water.
And you don't necessarily realize that you needed it until after you've had it. And you're just
Mhm.
like, oh, wow, I feel better. That's how I
Yes.
feel, because like salt, like having something that's really salty is one way to kind of help your body retain that water. And I love French fries. If there's one thing to know about me, that's like my main food group is French fries. And I did not realize the way that I had kind of been like self-medicating my own hydration needs.
Yeah.
Because I would eat fries all the time and I would feel great. And I know now that I know more about myself and that I'm borderline POTS candidate, that the salt was just like doing the most, and just like A plus, give salt a raise. It's doing great things for me personally. And I noticed on our most recent trip in Epcot, I personally love the chips, the slash fries, obviously, depending on which version of English that you're familiar with. Um, the in the UK pavilion
Mhm.
are just like excellent and tasty, but at like 4 o'clock one day I had them, and after I finished them, I was just like, wow, I suddenly have a ton of energy. I feel great. What are we gonna do next? And I was just like, that was just because I had salt. Like I didn't have caffeine. I didn't need
Yeah.
anything. I was just like, okay, duly noted. So
Yeah.
there's lots of strategies to make sure that you're staying hydrated,
Mm.
figure out what works for you. We're just adding this here as a reminder to do it once you're there.
Yeah. Salty popcorn and Mickey pretzels with salt are also great alternatives to that. If you like, I can only handle so many french fries before it becomes a potato texture nightmare for me. So I opt for salty popcorn and Mickey pretzels. So,
Duly noted to not take Jackie to Potato Land with Goose.
oh, but I like, I mean, I'll go to Potato Land. I just won't eat all the potatoes.
Fair, fair.
Okay, so I think that sums up during the trip. Just again,
Mhm.
not every single thing that we can possibly mention, but just our generalized tips for what we think is helpful. But now we have sadly ended our trip. What can we do to help kind of the recovery process as
Plan
we
another trip.
leave? Yes. Perfect. But if you're not able to do that, don't stop what you've been doing. Don't stop stretching. Don't stop walking. It will be easier for your body if you kind of wean yourself off of that instead of just like stopping cold turkey, so to speak. You know, continuing to stretch to get your muscles to kind of wean off of that high level of activity that you're doing. And also, if you can continue to keep up your walking, you'll be prepped and ready for that next trip when you do plan it.
Absolutely. I will say that, like, obviously rest is really important, but if I am like, I don't wanna say that there's a thing as too much rest, but I've learned that if I don't do some gentle movement, my body gets more stiff. Like,
Yes.
those muscles are really, really tired because you just did a lot. And so
Mhm.
obviously you don't need to keep that pace up, but like think about yoga with Adrian or like some other kind of like gentle activity or like a significantly shorter walk. Just something to kind of remind those muscles that like, hey, like we're here, we're managing, and they
You
don't
did
need to
great.
just
Thank you.
go, be frozen in carbonite like Han Solo. Like, they can stay awake and everything will be excellent and great.
Yeah, and that can be
Oh,
really hard, especially if you're like us, where you have a really long car ride after the trip. And that's where some of those, even just stretching, making sure you're taking breaks in the car and not driving too long at a time, that's good no matter where you're going to or coming from. All of those types of things are always really, really good to make sure you're doing as you leave.
that's why I find the compression gear and the KT tape particularly helpful because then it's like, oh, when I do move again, it like helps my muscles that are really tired remember that like this is what we're supposed to do. And that's when, it's great to have those on hand.
Yes.
Hydration also really helps recovery.
Oh, what?
I
Hydration
can't believe
again?
you're mentioning it again.
That is just crazy. It's like it's like it's really important or something.
I don't know, I guess it's something that we should maybe do. But it helps with the inflammation, like we said before. Obviously hydrate all the time if you're listening to us right now. This is my passive aggressive, maybe aggressive reminder to go take a drink of water. Or maybe think about the last time that you did and like or like eat some food that is heavy in water, like I don't know, fruit, I guess, but like maybe put some chocolate on the fruit so it's more exciting. I don't know. I'm not telling you you have to eat healthy. I'm just saying you gotta hydrate. Like that's eat what your body needs, and your body needs water in some form.
Yep.
Some form. So,
Yep. Preach.
and again, take painkillers as needed. Continue to stretch. And if you keep up with that, you're gonna be really prepared for the next trip that you take. I'm very excited for you. I saw a meme recently, or maybe not a meme because it was a text post that was just like, "What's the worst ride at Disney?" The ride home. The ride home is the worst ride at Disney,
Yep.
and I stand
Yep.
by that, so
Yeah. And if you keep this up until the trip after your next trip, then we've done our jobs,
Mhm,
which is
absolutely.
to inform you and give you information to make your trips better. So hooray, we all did it together. Look at us go.
Yippee!
We did the thing. Hooray. So yes, that is our kind of our overview and our best uh shortened version of all of the things that you can do without also like taking you into again like a full stretching class. We don't need to do that. You are capable of doing that on your own. We believe in you. You can do it.
I
And
trust your ability to Google.
yes.
I do.
And if you're someone that's like, I need more help, where do I start? Send us a message. We're here to
Absolutely.
help. Not only with planning for your Disney trips and what food you should eat and what lightning lanes you should do, but also how to prepare your body, because that's everything we just talked about. So if you need more tips or advice, or you've got ideas to add to, or thoughts for future podcast episodes, all those good things, we would love to hear from you. You can always find us momstreetusa@gmail.com, or you can find us on several social media platforms at momstreetusa as well. And as always, we do have a Discord channel on our good friend Kirk from Walrus Carps Discord. So find us on there. The links to all of that are in our social media bio. So if you want to find the best way or easiest way for you to connect with us, head to that link and you will find it there. It's also linked in the description of the episode. So, like, if you're listening to us elsewhere and you're like, I don't really want to click out of where I am to go find it, scroll to the bottom of our description and our link tree is right there. Look at that. I made it super easy for you. And as I mentioned, all of the names of everything that we gave today, as far as different YouTubes to watch or Instagram accounts to check out, we will be sure to link those in the description as well for all of you. We should talk about what's coming up next before we do our quick sign off here. Next episode is a solo episode from yours truly for Mom Street, and we're going to be talking about stroller strategy for the Disney parks. So, we talked not too long ago about what was in my Disney parks bag as a mom who has taken various age kids to the parks. Now we're going to kind of go to the other end, which is strollers, because that's kind of like an extension of your park bag. So that is where we are headed next. Hoping to give you guys lots of good info for that. But for today, Stevie, do you have anything else to add to our notes that we chatted about today?
I do, but you mentioned stroller strategy, and I hope that like squirrel guard is one of the things in your
Oh
stroller
my gosh,
strategy
it's
because that's the number
insane.
one thing on my mind when it comes to
I will
strollers.
be sure to add that to my, although I'm not really sure what you can do because at this point the squirrels have figured out how to open lunch boxes. So like I got nothing for you.
I mean, my tip is to not encourage them. Like,
Truth.
don't leave an open popcorn bucket
Yeah.
because, like, then they have even less work to do. You know, if you keep things in like Ziploc bags or, you know, like they're just like think of any like bug proofing kind of tips. That's where you've got to start. I can't promise that a squirrel won't still run away from it. But again, we're talking about risk reduction. We're not talking about like squirrel proofing something,
True.
you know, just weighing the pros and cons. But as it comes to as as it pertains to this particular episode, I am somebody who uh, am now for a couple years now have been really good about working out very regularly every single week, and I'm really proud of that. It took me my whole life to get to this point. Like it took me 30 years to be able to find a routine that worked for me. And I think that there's so much shame around finding ways to move your body. And I totally get that. And it's hard when you know that like you could do something that would help you on vacation, that you know maybe also helps with stress relief from packing and that kind of travel anxiety. Um, but finding the motivation to do it like is another beast. And so I just want to remind everybody that like something is better than nothing. You just find some way to make it fun for you or like least miserable is kind of what I used to tell myself. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I really don't want to go to the gym, but if I go to the gym, I can play games on my phone while I'm on the bike the whole time. I can scroll on TikTok the whole time while I'm on the bike. And that was like, okay, well, I guess I could go do that. And that was kind of how I would like work myself up into doing more. And something is better than nothing is like the main thing that I would love for anybody to take away from this. And I'm really passionate about anything being better than nothing. So
Yes.
I'm here for moral support as much as we're here for tips. And I just wanted to make that clear because I know that it can be really hard to get yourself into that kind of routine. And I just want to give everybody some grace that's listening to this.
Yes. And moving your body can be as simple as having a dance party with your kids in the kitchen.
Absolutely.
There are
It
so many
counts.
different ways. Yes,
Yes.
everything counts. Any way that you are physically moving your body in a new or increased way, even if it's just minimal, it definitely counts. And we're proud of you.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you guys again for joining us for this episode. And we hope to catch you on the next episode of Mom Street USA. Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Catch y'all on the flippity flop.